Welcome, everybody. This is Brent Swanson from Midwest Muscle Report, here with David Reid, fresh off his second place finish at the North Americans in the over 50 heavyweight class. How we doing, David?
Oh, it's great, man. Actually, riding a little bit of a high from the show, so feeling good.
Now, how old are you, by the way?
Just turned 50 in April, so...
Just turned 50 in April. I mean, if you look at your stage pictures and in talking to you and everything, I mean, Father Time's definitely been very kind to you in the way you look. You definitely have a good look. You look very young. What do you attribute that to?
Just a lifetime of just trying to do the right things, in the kitchen, eating well, and taking care of myself. I'm not a big partier. I don't like, every blue moon I'll have a beer or something like that, but I'm not a big guy to go out and drink. I try to get as much sleep as I can. Sometimes that's not always possible with my crazy schedule, but I just try to live a healthy lifestyle. I see all these people that just abuse themselves, and I'm like, guys I went to school with,
Right.
Look at I'm like, wow, you guys just like, wow, what did you do,
No, I definitely understand that. And, people just try to complicate it so much, but it's really simple. It's eat right, train hard. And, this is what you can aspire to look like, when you're 50 years old, and probably when you go to your class reunions, you see everybody else look about 20 years older than you.
Yeah, it's pretty interesting. I've heard a lot of comments like that, and people will hit me up on Messenger, just Facebook, and how do you do it? And I'm like, it takes hard work, man, and discipline. You guys used to laugh at me when I was in high school doing it, and you thought, oh, this guy's just an idiot. He's like, all he does is spend his time working out and training. And I'm like, well, now it's, paid dividends, I guess, in some facets. So
yeah, for sure. Now, looking at your pictures, it was a very narrow finish between you and the winner. So, you're one away from the pro card, and you can tell in looking at you, and, as we talked earlier, you've been doing this for a while, and you can tell this has been not just, hey, I'm getting ready for a bodybuilding show, but this is really a passion of yours, and you do it day in and day out for basically your whole life. Because you have that hard, mature, dense muscle, and a lot of people try to get that look, and really the only way to get that look is to do it for a lifetime and to be disciplined, and to just stay the course. And in saying all of that, you said you've been competing since 1987, correct?
Yes.
And then, it's 2015. What are some of the changes that you've seen in bodybuilding that you like? Do you like the direction that the sport is going? Or, what are just kind of your general thoughts and kind of, in the direction that the sport is going?
I've written a few articles on some different, I used to work for a company called Mind and Muscle, who's now my sponsor, but I wrote a few articles like describing what I'm kind of not liking about it. There's this just massive chase for being the biggest thing you can be. And I think sometimes it distorts the lines and the conditioning. I like the fact that they brought like the classic bodybuilding back, or physique, or whatever you want to call it. But to me, it's like there's got to be a hybrid somewhere in the middle where it's not just about chasing size. Because sometimes, as much as I respect the guy to death for building a huge physique, I don't really care for the look of a guy like Big Ramy. Like, I just don't like that look. It's too cartoonish.
Right.
And the one thing that, when I do stuff, like the one compliment that I take to heart is when people say, you look like an athlete, like who's, but you don't look like a cartoon character. And I'm like, well, thank you. That's a very nice thing. So to me, I think it needs to be, for bodybuilding to stay around, it needs to be palatable to the general public. It can't just be a freak show all the time.
Right.
It has to be more about the aesthetic and the balance. Like, sometimes I think guys just get rewarded because, they have a freak body part or something. I'm like, what about the whole physique being balanced and critiquing that? And, there's guys I see that are incomplete that win a lot of shows. Or, in Michigan, a lot of times you get guys that are popsicle sticks that are ripped, and I go, well, he won the show, but wait till he goes to nationals and he gets spanked by the guys that actually have muscle, and shape.
No, I'm definitely with you. It's kind of funny, when a regional competitor steps onto national stage, and they might place fifth in a regional show, so they're qualified. Then they step onto a national show, and my whole thing, at least my whole mindset is own your region first, win heavily and win easy, and then go to national show. Because if you go to national show and you can't even dominate your own area, like, what do you think is going to happen? You know what I mean? Yeah. It's going to be a vacation instead of an actual competition.
Well, you see these young guys, they'll be like, they did their first show, they're nationally qualified. Bro, I have BB Pro card, hashtag I'm the man, hashtag no you're not. you got some work ahead of you, kid. And it's like, it's awesome that people have like dreams and visions, but it's like you got to temper that with reality. And this is, I've told people, like, listen, bodybuilding is a hard sport to climb to the top, man. And there's guys that, like, the Matt Mendenhalls, Edgar Fletchers, the guys that proceeded in the 90s that were just straight freaks, just never made it. They just never got to that cut. And they were amazing bodybuilders. So it's like, to get to that level, the Kuklos, and it's a very few guys that can do it, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
now, something I like to ask a lot of bodybuilders, especially because, this has been, you've been in the game for a long time, which is awesome. Do you like that, it's harder as a bodybuilder to achieve your pro card as, like, let's say versus bikini, men's physique, figure in the other divisions? Or do you kind of wish that they would hand out a few more? I mean, I kind of feel like, it's the cream of the crop can only call themselves an IFBB pro as a bodybuilder, whereas a lot of people, will kind of get in a different division just because they hand out more cards. I guess, what's your take on that?
I think that it should remain the way it is. I mean, it's actually much easier now than it used to be. I remember, back in the 90s, like, if you had to win your class at nationals, all the class winners got pro cards. The USA, the overall got it. The North Americans, the overall got it. And that was your pro card winners in bodybuilding.
Right.
Or the worlds. And then now you have, like, it's easier to get it. But I to me, like, bodybuilders have to, I've explained this to people, like, listen, I don't want to hear you bitching about your diet because you have to get down to 12% body fat and get in a bikini. I go, listen, it's hard. I'm sure it's hard. But try getting down to like 4 to 5% body fat, holding on to 230 pounds of muscle, and training with the intensity that it takes to get that whole package refined. It's brutal sometimes. Like, I mean, there's times where I come home and I'm just like, geez, oh, Pete, what am I doing to myself? But then, there's that fighter in me that never wants to give in, and I'm like, I just get a different attitude, but it's like, it's brutal, but it should be. To get to the pinnacle of anything should be hard.
Yeah, I mean, it's just kind of like the old, saying anything worth life in doing, like, is going to take work, and it's going to take discipline, and, there's going to be suffering in doing it, but, as a bodybuilder mindset, and I kind of as a Midwestern mindset, it's like, if you don't have to work hard for it, then, why do it?
No, I agree with you 100%.
Yeah. Now let's kind of switch a little bit, and let's actually talk about your prep coming into North Americans. And then, was it an easy prep? Was it a hard prep? How would you compare this prep to other preps? And how do you compare, prepping at, being 50 years old versus, when you were 20, 30 years old?
Well, let's put it this way. It's a hell of a lot harder when you're 50 than it is when you're 25, 30, because your metabolism just not is kind to you, I don't think. The one thing that I think is a caveat to that, the age thing, is conditioning. I just think it's because you've been at it for so long, it's easier to get like that grainy look. You have it kind of right there. It's just a matter of getting the body fat off. And then, the prep was easy up in the only part this whole year. I started prepping January 4th, and I did the Michigan State Championships on June 4th. I knew I wasn't going to be 100% there because the whole goal is to get to Masters Nationals. I got 4th last year. I wanted to improve on that, and that was my goal.
Right.
So I jumped in. I knew that Michigan was like 5.5 or 7 weeks ahead of Masters Nationals. So I knew I wasn't going to get off my program for Nationals to get ready for the Michigan. I was going to be, wherever I'm at, I'm going to go on stage, deplete, do whatever, look as good as I can. And I ended up finishing second in my category, the supers. And then I went to, the next step. But 5 weeks out of the Michigan, I don't know what the heck happened. I thought I was going to die for a week. I was just like crawling into bed at like 6 o'clock. I was going home on lunch and taking naps. And then I got past it, and amazingly, I don't know what happened. It was just easy street the rest of the way. Even in the Nationals, wasn't bad. And then for the North Americans, I don't know. I just really turned it up a gear mentally, and I was just going and going and going. And everybody's like, "I never seen anybody like you." There's a couple IFBB pros in the gym were like, "I never seen anybody do what you do." I'm like, "Well, I don't know how else to do it, but work hard." I mean, that's the way you get to things. I'm not blessed with, like perfect metabolism and stuff. I can put on muscle real easy, but I have to work hard to get lean, you know? So.
Right, exactly. And now going back to, I think every competitor, has those weeks, in a prep where it's just like a make or break week. Are we going to stay on the diet? Or are we going to stay with the workouts, or are we going to fail? What do you think was your breaking point into really turning that gear on to where it felt like easy street? I mean, did you add food back in, or was it just something that your body was just like, okay, like if this is what you want to do, let's go?
I think that, there was a physiologic switch that tripped where I don't know if it was like a tie into my mental, but I kind of went back to last year with my mom being sick, and what I used to say to myself last year was, here's this 95-pound woman taking chemo at 70 some odd years of age and fighting like a champion, going garage sailing when she could, whatever she could do. And I'm like, who am I to bitch and complain about doing an hour of cardio on the step mill? Like, what's more uncomfortable? I go, I sound like a big giant sissy if I'm complaining about an hour of cardio. So, for me, I just was like, I want this really bad. I'm going to work my butt off for it. It's the only thing I know how to do. Dude, I was taught by my parents were immigrants to this country, Irish and Scottish, and they just get after it if you want it. Go get it. Nobody's giving it to you.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, kind of when you do step away from bodybuilding, you think about how many people are hungry in the world, or how many people are going through cancer, and things like that. It's like, what am I complaining about? I'm complaining because I have to eat potatoes and asparagus and chicken at a meal. It's like, at least I have food to eat, whereas people in some countries don't even have water to drink. Like, how ungrateful am I being at this moment?
But yeah, and I told people, because I used to box, I was a Golden Gloves champion when I was a teenager, and I told people, like, listen, the difference between boxing and bodybuilding, I go, in bodybuilding, I get to eat. In boxing, I didn't get to drink or eat for like 2 days to make weight. I'd go in saunas, I'd be uncomfortable as hell. And then I had to get in a ring and not get the crap knocked out of me. I said, that's a much harder task to do that than it is to bodybuild. I said, at least if I could show up on stage and hit some poses, I can hold my own, so.
Yeah. All right, David. Well, hey, really quick, what's next for you in the year 2017? Or are you done this year? Or what are the plans?
I'm done for 16, 17. My plans are to really focus on getting the Masters, Nationals, and, I might consider the Team U, depending on things. I'm going to talk to my coach, Bill Toko, at War Room Nutrition, and kind of go over what our plan is for 17. I just want to put on some size. I think I need to bring my back up. My back got weaker because I just wasn't hitting the 315 to 405 bent over rows and the stuff I used to do. So
right.
I need 20 miles of bad road on the back side of my body. The front side, I think I'm pretty comfortable with. A little bit bigger quads. Everything else, I'm just eat right, do all the things I need to do, and God, willing, I'll remain injury-free and be able to do this thing again next year.
Awesome. Well, hey, David, thanks for your time and speaking to us. It's nice to talk to somebody who gets the sport, who's competed for years, and just has a love for the sport, and you definitely do.
No, awesome, man. I really appreciate it. I look forward to following more with the Midwest coverage with you guys, because I just think sometimes we get kind of overlooked a little bit here in the Midwest. So everybody goes West Coast thing, and sometimes down south.
I know we got to shine a little bit of light on the Midwest, because there's a lot of good competitors. There's a lot of good competitors coming up, and there's a lot of knowledge. You know what I mean? It's definitely awesome to pick people like your brains and other people who've been in the sport a while and who've seen basically it all, just because there's a wealth of knowledge there that, I think a lot of, up and coming bodybuilders can learn from. So we definitely appreciate your time.
Well, thank you very much for having me on.
All right, awesome. This is Brent Swanson from Midwest Muscle Report, here with David Reid, second place at North Americans in the heavyweight class over 50. We'll catch up with David later, and hopefully he's going to have an awesome 2017 year. Thanks, guys.